Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility.
What's up, guys? You saw the title and thumbnail. You know today we're talking about Madara. The guy needs no introduction. He's easily the strongest ninja in the war, and today we're going to talk about his philosophy. And before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell if you enjoy my content. It really helps out the channel a lot. With that, let's break down his philosophy. Madara was a child soldier and later the head of the Uchiha clan. He grew disillusioned with the shinobi world and became convinced that peace was impossible in the real world, striving instead to create an infinite Tsukuyomi, a perpetual genjutsu that would basically trap everyone in the Matrix, a dream that would fulfill their deepest desires. Of course, this plan was later revealed to be just Zetsu manipulating him the whole time into reviving Kaguya, but this turned the discussion from something complex into something more black and white. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to ignore her. With that out of the way, I think the infinite Tsukuyomi was right. Let me explain. So, for Madara to be right, for his solution to be one that's justifiable, it needs to be better than reality. It would have to be better for everyone to be trapped in a fake genjutsu where they're totally happy than to deal with the real world and all its flaws. The argument for the infinite Tsukuyomi is very easy to make, and Madara makes it well. He says it's a world without winners or losers, no victors or vanquished. But beyond that, it's also a world without suffering of any sort. Sure, it's not real, but who cares? It's very easy to say reality has some inherent value, but I don't necessarily think it does. If people are happy, who cares how they get that happiness? If there's no way to figure out it's not real, then why does reality even matter? To illustrate this, I want to go back to my favorite villain in Naruto and probably all of anime, Itachi. We all know his story, forced to kill his clan for the greater good, but there's a moment in the light novel where Itachi kills Izumi, his love interest, that I think is relevant here. Izumi was Itachi's first victim on the night of the Uchiha massacre, but he didn't kill her brutally with a sword or whatever. He cast Tsukuyomi on her. I'm gonna read from the Naruto wiki here to explain. In the span of a second, Izumi lived through 70 years of an illusionary life. She becomes a chunin, Itachi proposes to her, she retires as a ninja, she and Itachi marry, Izumi gives birth, they raise their children, the children become adults, she grows old with Itachi, Izumi becomes ill, Itachi takes care of her, she's on her deathbed. When the illusion ended, Izumi collapsed and used her final moment of consciousness to thank Itachi. She then died, the death she experienced within the illusion, tricking her body into expiring as well. Now, without getting too deep into what ifs, let's say Itachi had spared Izumi like he spared Sasuke, and let's say she then dies in the 4th Shinobi World War. That's a realistic enough scenario, right? If that had been the case, Izumi would have seen her clan and comrades on the battlefield die, and then would have died herself. Now, ask yourself, is that better or worse than what Itachi gave her? Compared to a world filled with suffering, Itachi gave her one with all her deepest desires, and she thanked him for it. That's what Madara wanted to do for everyone. Even without war, there's still suffering in the world. Even if you manage to snuff out all conflict, all crime, and ensure freedom and peace, people still die. They get illnesses or pass away of old age. People still suffer. In Madara's reality, no one suffers. Everyone gets their paradise. Everyone is happy. The world may not be real, but their happiness is. Free will is overrated. Peace is fragile. People die for stupid things all the time, and it's better to have them live out the lives they want. You could make the argument that people won't have free will, but free will isn't as clear-cut a concept as you might think. Does war give people free will? Did Nagato's parents freely choose to die at the hands of Leaf Shinobi? Did Jiraiya choose to be killed by pain? All of the child soldiers who died because their leaders pushed them into battle, did those people have free will? Madara's infinite Tsukuyomi robs people of free will, yes. It doesn't let them decide their fate. But in the shinobi world, pretty much nobody gets to decide that, except people who are super strong. Some people say it's Madara forcing his will onto the world, but that's no different than the Kage asking their villagers to fight and die for them. The only difference is that Madara's way ensures that everyone is happy, while the old way risks suffering and pain. You could say it robs humans of the chance to settle things peacefully, but I disagree. First, there's no reason for anyone to think that peace is an actual possibility in Naruto. The Shinobi world has never been peaceful. Even the peaceful world we see after the Fourth War is interrupted by the Otsutsuki, and we're for sure going to have an insane conflict that kills a lot of people in Boruto. Absent Madara, it's highly likely that war would have continued. The Five Kage Summit, for instance, was a powder keg of tensions that might have exploded into war if it wasn't for the common threat of the Akatsuki. All it would take is one of the 5 villages wanting more land or more glory or whatever, and the world would be thrown into conflict yet again. It's an incredibly precarious situation. And this is what Madara means when he says that people can't really see each other's guts. The second reason people can't settle things peacefully is that it requires trust, and that trust is easily broken. We even see during the last, which is canon, that the Raikage has been developing a crazy moon-destroying weapon in secret. If A had gone crazy, who's to say he wouldn't have used that to wage war? Or what if that weapon was stolen? There are too many hypotheticals in this supposedly peaceful world. The same is true in real life. We're living in peace now, but is there any guarantee that North Korea won't start a nuclear war tomorrow? No. In fact, there have been dozens of nuclear close calls where the only reason humanity wasn't wiped out was the better judgment of 1 or 2 people. And there's another argument I wanted to bring up. Madara doesn't talk about this, but war is not the only cause of suffering. The real world is in a peaceful time right now, but homicide still happens. Absent homicide, illness still happens. We just had a pandemic, and we were really lucky that COVID wasn't more deadly than it was. If a new disease more deadly than COVID but just as transmissible came along, it could cause incredible amounts of suffering. But that couldn't happen in Madara's world. Then, finally, there's the moral argument. It can't be a good thing because the infinite Tsukiyomi is a dream, it's fake, it's not real. But as we see numerous times in Naruto, reality is not something rigid or fixed. Izanami rewrites reality in favor of the user. Itachi had his crush live out her whole life in a genjutsu. What is reality but perception anyway? The things you see, the things you hear, the things you feel. Don't these make up our entire reality? And if you perceive a paradise the way Madara intended, would that not be reality? What's the difference? The theme for the first half of Shippuden is loneliness and Naruto getting recognition from his village. He accomplishes this in the Pain arc, where he beats Pain and saves the village and is embraced accordingly. The theme for the second half of Shippuden is the curse of hatred. The idea that people will keep killing each other for revenge and that true peace can never be attained. Naruto is my favorite main character in anime, but I thought his solution was kind of underwhelming. He basically said that by being a good enough guy and making friends, he'd be able to take on the hatred. The problem is that the hatred of the shinobi world was far greater than Naruto alone. It had been brewing for centuries. The Uchiha and Senju had been fighting since Hagoromo's time, and we saw in the Five Kage Summit that all the nations had super long-standing, deep distrust of one another. There's no way you could convince me that Naruto alone would be able to solve all of that. Even if he created peace during his time as Hokage, his death in the future would undoubtedly create a power vacuum, and it's doubtful that the old grudges would be forgotten. Even if they were forgotten, all it would take is one rogue leader, one crazy Kage, to upset the balance of power and restart the cycle of hatred. That's exactly what happened with Naruto's past life, Hashirama. While Hashirama was alive, things were peaceful. But when he died, there were 3 more shinobi world wars. The final thing I see people saying against the infinite Tsukiyomi is that once the war was over, there was peace. This is true, but I actually think this justifies Madara's actions even further. Although Naruto hated the violence that came with the war, he actually needed that violence for there to be peace. Instead of hatred being hurled at each other, people hurled it at their new foe, the Akatsuki. They united against their common enemy. They didn't forget their old divisions, but realized that they were less important in the face of the literal end of reality. None of that could have happened without Madara, and he deserves some credit for that. Anyway, if you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I make Avatar and anime content twice a week, so come through, enjoy the ride. Let me know what you think about Madara's philosophy in the comments, and yeah, I haven't thought of a catchy closing line yet, so